Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. If you have not subscribed here yet, please do so now. But make sure you stay through the whole video because we're going to talk about some very important stuff. I know you guys are seeing it on mainstream media, lots of other talks and videos on the social media platforms. And you got to forgive me because where I'm at in my area, the wind is absolutely terrible right now. It's actually kind of scary. I'm in my work cabin. I have a little cabin I built, and I come out here and I like to do my work because it's just very quiet and peaceful and I can think. But this wind just absolutely seems angry. It seems almost synthetic, or like it is blowing straight up and down, if that makes sense. But it definitely feels ominous and like it has an agenda or something, like it's on a mission. So if you're hearing all that in the background, that's all it is. It's the wind. So but it's kind of befitting to what we're going to get into, because I want to talk to you guys about prophecy that's linked to the Euphrates River, revelation, so biblical prophecy, but also linked to the Anunaki. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Anunaki, they have been linked all the way to ancient past, pre-Noah's flood, and 5,000 plus years ago. I've seen a lot of headlines saying they've been lying to us for 5,000 years. I got news for you, honeys. It's been longer than 5,000 years. They're so intertwined and embedded within everything, but we have to be cautious of this because there's a lot of tricky things that happen. And those of you familiar with your Bible, or just you're familiar with your own discernment and you can smell funny business a mile away, well, get your sniffers ready, because it could be something along these lines, is all I'm saying. But, you're going to believe what you're going to believe, and that's what your discernment is for, and your free will. So have at it. But I will reassure you, I have studied and researched these very types of things for 20 plus years, going on 25 plus years. So I've been knowing of these things for, getting a hold of a lot of information and things that the everyday person just is not that concentrated on. It's getting harder and harder for me day by day. I wanted to make this talk weeks ago, but with my schedule, work, making ends meet, it's been very hard. So at the very least, I hope you appreciate this information that I'm going to bring you guys. The majority of it is going to be my perspective, but it is based off of factual information that is being leaked by what I will call the professional layer of society. So these are the people who have had their hands on and have always had access to ancient documents, artifacts, knowledge, and information. Main source being through their own familial lines, so bloodlines, mainly hierarchy, royal bloodlines. They safeguard their stories. These are not myths to them. These are actual things that their legit ancestors, DNA ancestors, had done. They had lived through these things. And a lot of scholars will say, be careful because people like to embellish and so on. Well, yeah, that's true. That's true in modern times. But you have to be, kind of look through that, because there's granules of truth in there as well. These are events that factually happened. If they embellished a little bit here, or about their looks, or how spectacular and how much splendor, and you can see through that. So it's the facts you want to pay attention to, not the embellishments, which average people do that anyway. But there is kind of a trick to the trade too when you are studying and reading into these ancient documents, because there is a linguistic difference. There is just the way of the cultures and how they communicated, and in certain areas where they did embellish, you really want to pay attention because they're referring to something else. And, kind of as if they're writing in riddles and you have to decipher the riddles. So every little thing can have a very significant meaning. And then they will kind of double language or use multiple different languages in one document or something. And, at first glance, it doesn't make any sense at all. It seems like mumbo jumbo. But to the trained eye and to someone who's dealt with this over and over, you start to realize what's happening and kind of, imagine highly gifted, highly intelligent, highly advanced individuals, maybe high priests, priestesses, wizards, magicians, what have you, the best of the best, and they're writing something down. It's meant for others on that level to decipher, not any lower classes, even in their own entourage or bloodline. So that are the kind of documents that are coming forth, mainly regarding the Anunnaki. And I want you guys to be careful on this because the Bible has pre-warned us on this. When you get into these ancient documents, in my opinion, since I've been following this for a better part of my life, it's as if they have toiled with us on this and they've made big money off of doing so because, let's face it, it's interesting. It's highly interesting. And what they propose a lot of the times makes it that more tantalizing. Who would not want to think that really by blood you may be an advanced hybrid or some kind of royal descendant that just one day you're going to have all the proof and present it and poof, you're going to be living this divine life of splendor. They know that. Any salesman, knows the good points of their pitch and they're going to embellish on that. So this could be what's happening, and again, that's just my opinion, but it sounds like all of the headliners, like from the History Channel, Gaia, all of these professors that kind of pop up out of nowhere, but they're on accredited channels, like the professional channels, not just a channel like mine, just a regular out of your homemade cabin broadcast, but someone who's got a manager and they have lights and production and makeup, those kind of channels. And, they're highly qualified and, they're saying, well, I really deciphered it to say this and this. The scholars before me from the 40s and the 30s and the 20s, they got it wrong. And it really says this. That could be that no, they did not get it wrong. But in fact, what they put out to the masses was a false interpretation. So they left major key points out. It's said about the Bible being the same, that we know there are many documents and things that were purposely kept out. So this applies as well. And there's been individuals for hundreds of years, if thousands, that know the entire package deal on the information, every word verbatim. But if they were to put every word out, now we're going to go from this perspective, that they're telling the truth, and the people who are talking about it now are telling the full truth and nothing but the truth. And the people prior were keeping information away from us, just because they didn't want to hurt us. They didn't want us to go crazy and freak out and maybe rebel or something like that. So they didn't want to lose control of the smoothly running populace, because we all know how smooth things have been throughout the past hundreds, thousands of years, for some people. But so now they're saying, hey, we got all of the information. We're not leaving anything out. But the problem with that is the way they read it off now versus prior you can line up from prior information and okay, that's there. And now there are these extended parts of the stories. And what strikes odd with me is they sound very familiar. And I thought, I'm going to go look back at some things. And sure enough, there it is. Like, just for example, not specifically, but just for an example, Graham Hancock or Zechariah Sitchin and many others. Those are the two coming to mind right now. I apologize, but they had prior stated their interpretations of what these ancient Sumerian texts and cuneiforms really meant. And they sound identical to what these individuals are saying. So did they just go and get these professionals, breakdowns, interpretation, and just filled in the slots? So where it may have said glowing star traveling, or, like glowing star coach or something, and everyone's, well, no, that means spaceship. So we're just going to interpret it spaceship instead of fiery chariot, in the landing spot of the fiery chariots. So before, they would have not incorporated the whole line that would have spoke of the landing place of the fiery chariots, because we would have figured that out. We would have understood that, in the very least, within the past 40 years, we would have known. Even prior to that, that sounds like some kind of flying mechanism that was able to reach the heavens. And in a nutshell, and we're going to go through much more of the information and examples, but if they would have came out with all of this, then the masses would have known we've always had this technology. That's not what has changed. Nothing has changed about this advanced nuclear technology, having nuclear weapons and laser beams and things that could destroy a planet, let alone enslave an entire planet. We would know that. But then we would figure, well, if that has not changed, and that's always existed, then what would have changed? It would have been mankind's perspective, kind of a reprogramming of sorts, a retutelage, our minds being focused towards entirely something else, in the erasing of memory. But the problem with that is we have DNA memory, we have soul memory. And then they'll say, well, but yeah, if you look up, scientists announced some years back, they have these devices and these technologies that they can implant false soul memories. Maybe. But I also believe that God has his way around every little dirty trick. So therefore, he would enable you to decipher something being synthetic versus natural. And I do stand by my faith in that. Now, your opinion, that's on you, but that's my opinion. And I truly believe in that. So we're going to go on. What is Revelation speaking of? If you have your Bibles, go ahead and pull them out. If not, I'm going to throw some verses up for you. But we know of the prophecies. We know of the prophecy of the Euphrates River. Now, what's happening? I'm going to throw some maps up for you guys. What is happening in that area? Many of you may not even know the Euphrates River starts in the northeastern portion of Turkey. Right in the area, the same area where so many earthquakes are going off. Just 2 weeks ago, just 3 weeks ago, The original 7.8 earthquake that happened on February the 5th, massive. There were many earthquakes that were happening prior to that in the same region. Not only that, multiple earthquakes fired off the very next day and have been ongoing since. And it is and all you got to do is go pull up the roster on the USGS, or there are other sites, that permeate from Turkey and Eurasia and all that. You can find these sites, pull them up. If I can get the exact links, I will put those in the description box for you guys. But I'm in communication with someone who lives in that region, and they are updating, and they have a channel of their own. So they're keeping me up to date and linking me up with people who are from that region, so they're hearing the discussion from on ground. And many of the people are saying that these other quakes have been very big, very powerful, over 5.0. So massive impact earthquakes. And they may not be elaborating on that fact. They may be at this point reporting and focusing on the 7.8, but they're like, hey, they're happening at that rate and at that energy level, that powerful often now. And they seem to be all along the Euphrates River area. And we have the Euphrates River that is dried up. It is drying up. And it has been prophesied. And along with that prophecy, it warns of Gog of Magog. And there are many individuals who believe that this area is Magog. And Gog of Magog will surface with all of his hordes at the end of days, the last days, when ill events happen and calamity and catastrophe. We see that unfolding with these never-ending earthquakes. This is totally devastating. This is semi-apocalyptic. It is horrible. Upwards of 50,000 people, last I checked, that have perished from these calamities. This is no small thing. This is massive. And a lot of people, well, what can we do? Even if they are lying to us and they're tricking us, no, there is something we can do. We can pray. We can pray fast. We can hold to our prayer. Pray for these individuals in this area. Pray for our friends. Pray for our families in Turkey. And incorporate them in our daily, nightly, everyday prayers. And if you've not been getting up on your prayers, incorporate that. That is powerful. Prayer is one of the most, if not most powerful weapon that we have. People need to know prayer is powerful. So please pray for our family in Turkey. I honestly don't see this ending. I see the calamity going on. It may show up in different areas, slightly different areas, and it may cool down just for it to spike back up. And I say that with a tear in my eye because I do feel for these people. And if they could, which I understand, it's not that easy. It's not always that easy. But if they could, I would leave that area. I would have a mass exodus, and I would leave that area. Here on my channel, I made many videos last year kind of prophesying and predicting of mass exodus around the world. And I'm not going back on that. And we see this unfolding in different points of the earth. And a lot of them come from that area. They come from Turkey, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Lebanon, and Eurasia. But it's not just there. I have kind of foreseen or expect that the other side of the world will have events as well. I've warned more in my local area, especially about the eastern seaboard of the U.S. And I often warn about the New Madrid area. And that's the one that perturbs me the most, because I don't see much about that area, as if no one pays attention or no one even remotely cares. But we've already seen a massive calamity happen right over the New Madrid. It was a massive tornado that hit down. And now, mind you, anyone that knows how tornadoes work, you know that they hit and they bounce back up. This tornado hit the ground. Mind you, it was like the biggest tornado that the U.S. has ever seen. Hit the ground and stayed down. It did not come up, as far as anyone knows. Did not come up, not one time, for 200 miles. So 200 plus miles. This massive historical tornado touched down on the earth and ripped through 200 miles of homes and families, and just utterly devastated all life in its path, decimated everything. And it was big news for about a week, and you've not heard anything since. The strange thing, or coincidental thing about this tornado, is the time of the year that it happened, just right before Christmas. That kind of weather doesn't happen in that season here, not in that area. Flag number one. Flag number two, it traversed directly in the path that I've been talking about for several years now. And I call it the lion and the lamb. And it's the shadow band lines of where two distinct solar eclipses make an X or a tau pattern over the United States. And right in the center of kind of a X marks the spot is the New Madrid fault line. Directly in the center. And there is kind of a fallout zone or trajectory around that where I suspect high activity, high calamity, or high strangeness to happen. And there happens to be several cities that are located kind of in these crosshairs within that nexus point. But there's a small town or village, perhaps, named, Makanda. And if you search that name up, it's ancient Sanskrit, and it stands for the mango tree. So a lot of times when I talk about this, I dub that the mango tree prophecy. So if you ever hear me talking about that on other videos and things, that's what I'm referring to, the mango tree prophecy. So it's going to be about the zodiac, celestial alignments, solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, high strange activity, radioactivity, nuclear activity, you name it. The most powerful of powers you can imagine are in the mango tree prophecy. So, and I'll try to get more into that at the end of the video, because it's very interesting and there's a lot that goes into that. If not, on next talk, I will try to incorporate and fill you guys in on that. I've been doing a lot of research on that area, and it's got high strangeness for sure. All right, so back to the other strangeness. So the other strange thing that is coming out of these supposed ancient true versions of the Anunnaki, who originally landed down in Sumer, or later Sumeria, later Babylon, several different names, proclaims to be Eden, So kind of like all of that area is considered Eden or Eden. And really just claiming everything, every and anything that's ever been spoke about in the Bible. So they put their perspective on it. These space race of higher quality, partial divine, because they proclaim divinity, but yet they're unsure of what the All Father and the higher gods are kind of up to, and at any moment could strike them down with their karma and fate and so on. But they proclaim and protest that they are better than us. They are of more divine essence and so whatever else they proclaim above us. They're just better. We're like the peasant, slow cousins or something. We look like them. We're in the same kind of gene pool, but they're better than us. Therefore, we should be thankful for them in whatever it is they choose to do, because, they really wouldn't have to help us out at all and do anything. They could just decimate us, enslave us, or whatever, and not do anything nice. But they do some nice stuff that they proclaim, edges, and ascends mankind along in evolving and becoming more like them. But like I was saying, the funny thing is, when you go in and you're listening or you're reading all of these new full disclosure, this soft disclosure that we're in, you quickly realize that they're talking about things that we have now. Nuclear weapons, highly advanced, dangerous weapons. Some things that would appear that we don't have, but I believe that we do, because if we kind of have one, odds are we have the other. So they're speaking of all these advanced technologies that, like I said, could wreak havoc, catastrophic failure in certain locations and perimeters, all the way up to planetary demise. I mean, planet killers. And they possess all of these types of things. In some cases, it really starts to unfold and appear to be wizard heaven, that these are just wizards to the max and know all the tricks to the trades, astral planing, where the portals are, the stairways to heaven, the locations, the landing pads, how to create life-giving elixirs and bring you back from the dead elixirs and take you on journeys to the underworld in the realm of death elixirs. And I mean, they got it all. And they have conspiracies, and they have double crossing out the wazoo. And like I said, everything. They even claim Noah. They claim Abram. And they proclaim that they edged along all these individuals, that they were privy and kind of responsible for the survival of Zeusudra or Nishtapitan, I believe is how you say that, which equivocally is supposed to be Noah. And Noah's papa is Enki himself, which is Enlil's brother. And long story short, Enlil's kind of the crazy, power-hungry half of the duo that wants ultimate control of everything, and it's his way or no way, and will do whatever it takes. Not very much high morality or compassion or conscious, anything like that. So it appears. We have all that now. I mean, it really does seem like a modern day interpretation, just with different names. So again, this could be the exact truth of things. I don't know. I don't know. I can't say that. Only I guess you could judge that for yourself and how you feel about this new disclosure. But it's out there. They've been doing it. They've been doing the soft disclosure for a long time. We have people like David Wilcox and others who have been telling us, get ready for the soft disclosures because they're happening. You just got to know where to look. And not everybody's interested in ancient cuneiform or ancient Babylon, or, a lot are, but not many. So, I guess if you are and you're listening to this, tell a friend. Because, they just may be ignorant to all of this and fall right into the snare trap. So tell a friend. It also starts to state things in there that I have spoke of myself 20 years ago. I was saying how the earth was kind of flipping, and it can do it by itself, but there have been other times that it needed kind of a synthetic boost, or it was followed through with a synthetic boost from beings, technologies, etc. And it's alluding to things of that nature in these stories, these Anunnaki stories, or, ledgers, their personal feats and things that they wrote down. There's so much. A lot of things that I kind of discovered or predicted is within these stories. And then it leads me to wonder, is that kind of co-signing my suspicions that I had around 2019, 2020, that the systems were kind of using that all-seeing eye and discovering theories and hypotheses and things like that, and using them for their self, and then putting them out and saying, here, we'll charge you $5.99. You come see this exclusive information we have. And, they're making a big buck out of that big bang. And it does resonate with a lot of people, because a lot of people, come to find out, was probably your idea. It probably was your messages you were receiving, your epiphanies, and so on. That's why it resonates so well. Again, just speculation, just my opinion. Could be. And you'll notice I play a lot of the could be. I also made a video where I broke down all the way to the quantum layer, to the microscopic micro version of what we could be in our essence, all the way up to the macro. And I highly suggest that video to you guys. I mean, it's fascinating. You're going to want to hear this. I hypothesized that our pineal glands, if not safeguarded, can be kind of opened up in way of your free will, a soft opening, I refer to it, and they can then find their way in, and from the inside start to crystallize your pineal gland. And at the particular given moment, draw your essence, draw that physical component of your soul up into your pineal gland and completely encapsulate it in a crystallized pineal gland, which would be the size maybe of a pea, maybe smaller, maybe bigger. And then upon your death, all that would need to be retrieved is that pineal gland, which holds and encases your very soul. Then simply load that into a holding tank, place it on a ship, or whatever they want to do with it, anything. Place it inside of a clone, a synthet, a different being on a different planet, a worker race, whatever. So this is the importance of this stuff. This is why you need to decipher through this information. And you can call it knowledge or ancient knowledge or the ancestral knowledge or whatever you will. I'm not going to sit here all night and debate who exactly could be an offspring. That's not what matters. Decipher through the junk and get the important details. When it's referring to something that, you would so desperately want to and need to protect your soul. Your soul and your pineal gland are the two most important things right now. So we should be focusing on those. There's other things in there too, and they're discussing, solar alignments, the study of the solar system, studies of the sun, study of the moon, very important things that you could correlate with many things, discoveries and places and so on. And at some point I thought, they're not searching for these places to prove God. They're searching for these places to either prove or disprove the Anunnaki. Because all the places that are in the mainstream and are televised and headlined, we discovered this here, and Graham Hancock is studying Angkor Wat and da-da-da. These are all star bases, stargates, landing ports that the Anunnaki take credit for. So, make your own judgment. Again, you'll have to go watch the videos or get a hold of the papers and read those. But I would probably suggest do the videos because they're very lengthy. So plan on sitting around for a while. It's going to take a while. And especially if you're wanting to break down every little passage and every little thing that's being talked about to correlate it with something else. And this is referring to this and this matches this. You're going to be there for a while. But goes into the whole DNA manipulation, clones. What else was I working on that it discussed? Technologies and satellites. And I've been working on this hypothesis of some sort of either a synthetic technology like a ship, craft, or an actual asteroid or a planet is sitting just behind our sun. And perhaps it could be in correlation with the Anunnaki. I'm not sure. But just as, we orbit around, wherever we're stationed and facing the sun, they're going to be directly behind the sun. So we cannot detect them. And they are in fact distorting the sun rays, sending down distortion messages through the light language. They've kind of tapped into the light language, hijacked the light language. And it's not all distortion, but they throw distortion into the light language. And for those of you who are very familiar with that, you'll know exactly what I'm referring to. And if not, again, subscribe to the channel, look at my prior videos, wait for more material to come out, because I'm sure I will go into more depth about light language and the sun's rays, etc. So they touch on that. So I know if I'm realizing or remembering and knowing of these kind of ways of doing things, technique, many others are too. So that's not the shocking thing. The shocking thing is, to me, these stories are claiming everything. And where do we know, or rather, who do we know is really great at doing that? That's the thing I cannot get past. I'm not blown away with, oh my gosh, the truth. They've been lying to us for thousands of years. No, it's like the audacity. The audacity. Like, anything can be twisted and distorted. And so much so into a point that you don't know what is fiction or truth unless you really focus on it and you really, really want to know. But the sad thing is, many people don't get to that point. They're just like, they move on. So it becomes dangerous information. All right. So I'm going to stop the video there. There's so much more we could talk about. So come back, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave me a comment. And if you guys come back, we're going to talk more about this, because it all ties in with everything. all current events, everything that's going on, it's all tied together. Nothing is a coincidence. Nothing is a mystery. Maybe next time we'll also get into the synthetic side of things. Because, I talk and I hear from a lot of people and they want to know, they have the ability. Are they synthetically creating these things to trick us into this and that and the third? We're going to discuss that next time. So make sure you come back. All right. Keep up with the earthquakes in Turkey, directly linked into biblical prophecy. If you notice and do your homework, the earthquakes are happening all along the dried up Euphrates River area. So, kind of what's to come next. We know of other prophecy of the Euphrates River. It speaks of kind of the vile things coming out, the apocalyptic type plagues, and last but not least, the Nephilim, the angered Nephilim. And these cuneiform texts, these tablets from the Anunnaki give their depiction of who the Nephilim are. Kind of the Igigi, or the workers or soldiers that they brought with them, that in result end up having a rebellion. They turn against the Anunnaki, against the overlords. They've been overworked and being treated inhumanely and so forth. And they get kind of fed up and they rebel. They don't want to do this anymore. They don't want to work under their control. And they want to mix and mingle with the earthly women and have dates and have lives and so forth. So again, all in your discernment and what you believe and how you choose to perceive that. All right. So I wish you guys many blessings to you and yours. I hope to see you guys at the next video, and just stay up and obtain your knowledge, do your work. All right. Many blessings until next time. All right, guys, so this is part 2, picking up where I left off with my vision slash revelation dream that I've had continuously for the past almost 10 years or more. There's one thing that I did not mention, and I really meant to mention in the last video, and I wanted to get to what we've been talking about with the pole shift, with the inner core reversing, and kind of like, what does all this mean? Well, I've done extensive research and a lot of study in way of astrology, the zodiacal wheel, celestial alignments, and things that correlate with time slots throughout our history and throughout the forming of the United States. So going clear back into the 1400s and beyond. And I've worked extensively with that time period through history. And I've uncovered some very interesting things. And, I don't see this, and I haven't heard this spoke about, but I'm not in every science journal and every community of that nature. But it's very interesting indeed. So you can find a lot of this information, but you're going to have to jump around to different avenues. And I've came across this information in some very surprising places as well, such as the study of crop circles and the Center for Remote Viewing, and these kind of secret and not so much secret anymore places around the United States. But if you can see the map behind me that I have on the whiteboard, if not, I'm going to throw a version up on the screen. And I have these places X'd, and the X's are circles. So kind of X marks the spot. So for those of you familiar with my channel, I have plenty of videos where I discussed the New Madrid fault line and where that lies within the shadow bands of full solar eclipses. And again, I'll throw that on the screen. So this is a very extraordinary place. Now, this place also has great significance with the ancient Phoenicians and ancient Egypt, namely with the Ptolemy family and Queen Cleopatra herself and her sons, Philadelphus and Helios. So back in ancient Egypt, the Ptolemies knew or felt that this location had some significance because they indeed did send scouts, family members, people to these locations to kind of proclaim these locations. And we are currently unearthing artifacts from ancient Egypt, from these eras, from these times. So that coincides with many things that I've unearthed that kind of proves, the Americas are very ancient. There's been a lot going on in the Americas. It didn't just kind of start popping off when Columbus came over and said, hey, you know what, things are going now. No, things have always been going on in the Americas. There's another channel, and this gentleman's really great at touching on that particular subject about, ancient activity in the Americas, in South America. And I'll throw his link up on the screen now. Sorry. So the kind of X marks the spot. In way of hypothesis and theory, I've come to a conclusion that you want to go back to kind of pre-Younger Dryas period. So maybe just in the beginning of the Younger Dryas, there, and through to the end. This is going to be significant because I believe several things occurred. And it occurred in way of something or some things coming from way of the celestial heavens, from the cosmos, and came into the earth and penetrated the deep ice crust that we had. And I want you to picture all of the countries were one landmass. So Pangea. And in the region that I have X'd on the map, and again, if you can't see it, around the region in the upper kind of middle western coast of Canada, and also up into Alaska and what would now be Siberia. Another important location, again, is the New Madrid, and then down into the Bermuda Triangle, where it is rumored, and it's strong hypothesis, and the evidence is looking very convincing, of Atlantis being in that location of the Bermuda Triangle in that region. I have reason to believe that something came down in way of the cosmos into the earth and was such a strong impact that it penetrated the ice deep into the mantle and beyond, into the core of our planet. And when these things struck down into the earth, that it created, fire and brimstone, enough in way to spark off lava, spark off volcanic eruption. So you have a combination of things going. So I believe the one in Canada struck deep into the core and it triggered off a volcanic eruption. So you have all of these things simultaneously going off, and gases, things deep, toxins from in the earth hitting our atmosphere and just wreaking havoc, catastrophic havoc. But I believe there was one that also struck around Atlantis, if not smack dab in Atlantis. Now, one could say maybe this was a natural occurring event, maybe a comet broke apart, the tail of a comet, maybe an asteroid. meteors, a number of things. Could it have been synthetic? Maybe so. But it appears to have had just kind of a lucky trajectory, we'll say. So, whatever these things are that came into the earth, I believe are still trapped deep within the mantle or the core of our earth. And I believe these objects are still active. Thus, why we have this magnetic sensitivity, why we have these strange occurrences and strange things that are happening around these particular areas. Even Lake Michigan, not many people know there is a kind of a Bermuda Triangle within Lake Michigan. So if you kind of map this out, this would be a perfect bombardment or a line to say, coinciding with the way our earth spins and something coming in. Now this could have been pulled in way of keyhole. And this is fascinating to me because if, dependent on the alignment of the earth when that occurred, we could take from this and apply it to future events to kind of see how something would react and the type of trajectory it would take upon coming through that keyhole and entering into the earth. Now, I believe that our ancient ancestors were very privy to all of this knowledge and information. Thus, that is why they built particular cities and aligned particular cities and locations, sacred locations, mountains, spiritual locations, because of these very occurrences. They knew that, in an advanced way, had to have been highly advanced in way of space travel, space knowledge, perhaps even satellites, because they were calculating things to such a high degree that there is clear evidence there to lend to that they definitely were advanced space races. They were fully knowledgeable in space travel. And in some way, I believe that our current events that are related to the heavens, to the cosmos, and future events revolve around these locations and these celestial objects that I believe are still within the core, in the mantle of our earth. So, in a sense, communicating with outer celestial objects and kind of guiding them and pulling them toward the earth. Now, I may be out of the loop here with my hypothesis and behind a little bit because I'm sure there may be others in a scientific community at a prestigious school somewhere who have studied and researched this very thing. And I apologize to you if you are. But, I'm just a regular stay-at-home mom, and these are the things that I've researched for a long time. And these are the conclusions that I've came to. If you do have a very familiar hypothesis or think along the same lines, I would love to know in the comments down below. So feel free to share what it is that you believe about this, kind of what you know, what you've discovered. I would absolutely enjoy hearing that. But I believe that it's very plausible. And there is a hypothesis that I've not released that video yet. I'll be releasing it soon. It's a fairly long video. But again, it's another revelation, a kind of a soul memory that I had that correlates with all of this activity as well. The activity in the Younger Dryas leading up to Noah's flood, and it involves the Eye of the Sahara. Now, that's a very fascinating story. And I've noticed there has been some people, Andrew Collins, just to name one that I've heard that are on the same line in the same way of thinking. So I know things of this nature have crossed their mind, or they've unearthed things to lead them to believe along this line. And I do believe that in the very near future, there will be talks of things being unearthed from the eye of the Sahara. Ancient artifacts, ancient site, perhaps, of an ancient fortress or kind of stargate, space facility, what have you, kind of like a military base. And, I'm not going to get too much into that in this talk because, again, that's a long story into itself. But it all coincides. When you have people going back into soul memory and they're remembering. And, that's just to scratch the surface. We could get into a deep conversation about soul memory alone. But again, maybe I'll clarify on that in the future and we'll do just a segment in just way of soul memory. But we have people remembering, kind of fleeing this pre-catastrophe. So the things when they're starting to unfold, kind of the fire and brimstone stage, the plasmatic lightning, and things of this nature. And they start to flee. They start to head east from this cataclysm that is unfolding. So they, let's say, come from the region of the West Coast. So we'll say California, up into Washington, Canada, perhaps. If you go any much higher, you're getting into deep ice. But I believe Washington down into California, even just under the Great Lakes, was thawed. And I also have another hypothesis that if you were to go up beyond Canada, up into the North Pole, I believe there was a deep layer of ice, but within the center of this ice, kind of like a geode, was a thawed area that could coincide with Eden, the Garden of Eden, perhaps, and many other revelations and soul memories. And within that kind of Garden of Eden, there would have been that layer of ice in the atmosphere. So when these things came down from the heavens, they penetrated and they broke that layer, which would have appeared to have been in the atmosphere, thus thawing it rapidly, and it rapid melting and it coming down and causing catastrophic flooding. And so now you got it kind of pumping from there and making its way down through Canada, down into the Americas, and so on.